Hey everybody, welcome to a new series that I am starting called Food Clues Connects. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Dr. Alexis. I'm the owner of Nutrition Health and Wellness, and you might also know me as the Food Allergy Doc. I've developed my Food Clues philosophy, which is pretty summed up in believing that every food you avoid is a clue to your health. And the purpose of this series is to talk about different types of food preferences, food avoidances, and challenges, and how they can be powerful clues to underlying issues that might be driving other conditions, diseases, symptoms in the body, and to also bridge the gap between those same food patterns and the body's natural signals or ways of telling you that a problem may be stirring, all with an overall goal to empower you with more knowledge, more education, and more autonomy in taking care of yourself in the health and wellness perspective, being able to know a little bit more about how your body functions so that you can make better decisions for your own health care. All right, let's dive into our first topic. So our first Food Clues Connects is going to involve thyroid dysfunction. We're talking about thyroid function. So in general, how prevalent are thyroid issues? Well, according to the American Thyroid Association, more than 12% of the US population will develop some type of thyroid issue in their lifetime. And right now it's estimated that 20 million Americans have some form of thyroid disease. That's a lot. Up to 60% of those with thyroid disease are unaware of their condition. They haven't been completely diagnosed yet, but they've got their symptoms and their signs. We'll talk more about that in a little while. Let's give a brief overview because that can be a whole episode on its own, but I'm going to talk very briefly about what the thyroid actually does. Most of us know that it's a gland. Most of us know that it's in the middle of our throat, but what does it really do? The overall general function of the thyroid is to control metabolism. What's interesting is that when we think about metabolism, so you may have heard or even used that word in general. What's interesting is that when we talk about metabolism, and even when I did before, my career started in this area, we often associate it with usually two things. We talk about energy when we talk about metabolism, and we talk about digestion, or we associate metabolism with mostly energy and digestion. I'll give you some examples. When we're feeling fatigued or low energy, we all often will say things like, my metabolism is low. We also will say like metabolism is low when we have difficulty losing weight or when we have issues with weight gain. On the flip side, we often talk about seeing people who are able to like consume or eat a lot of foods and not necessarily see changes in weight or big fluctuations in weight based on how much they're eating. We often label those people as having a fast metabolism. And while metabolism does involve how the body creates and uses energy, and how it creates and uses nutrients from food, the big purpose and the technical definition of metabolism involves the sum of all chemical reactions that happen in the body in order to keep it moving and grooving, to sustain its life and sustain its consistent performance. So, the thyroid gland controlling metabolism essentially means your thyroid gland has a responsibility for nearly every chemical reaction that happens in the body. It controls metabolism by producing the T4 thyroid hormone. That's the non-active form of your thyroid hormone. It also produces calcitonin, and those are both chemical messengers that signal to organs to help those organs function in a number of different ways. It helps with sugar absorption from the blood, fat breakdown, energy production made in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, if you go back to your biology days in high school. It also helps to, or both of those hormones both help to control heart rate, breathing rate, and to also influence the health and wellness of the menstrual cycle. When I talk to my clients, I call the thyroid and the associated thyroid hormone levels, I call them the check engine light of the body. Because when you think about your car, the check engine light comes on. What do we know? We know that there's a problem, but we don't know where the problem is. We don't know what the problem is. We just know that there's a problem, and that is our signal to go have the car looked at, to take the car to the mechanic. Similarly, thyroid function and thyroid hormone function is the same way. When it becomes dysfunctional, we should be taking that as a signal that something is off in that metabolism umbrella. One of those chemical functions is off. And then how do we narrow down? That's where it comes to our other signs and symptoms, especially our food clues. So, usually thyroid function shifts in a couple of common ways. So I'm just going to go over 3 common ways that thyroid function shifts that give us that check engine light type of experience. One, increased TSH levels, so thyroid stimulating hormone. That's a hormone that signals from the thyroid to the brain that there's a problem. And the bigger the problem, the more signals get sent to the brain. That signal does not tell the brain where the problem is, just like the check engine light, but it does let the brain know that there is a problem that needs to be attended to. Thyroid function shift number 2, either low T3 levels or higher T4 levels. T4 is your inactive or non-active form of thyroid hormone, and T3 is the active form. You get T3 from a conversion that happens in the liver. So those low T3 levels or high T4 levels can happen if the body stops that conversion process because it's sensing that the thyroid the T3 is not being used for some reason. The body does a really good job of kind of taking note and surveying and seeing like what's going on. And if it notices that a substance isn't being used for whatever reason, you might not know the reason yet, the body will stop production of it. Because at that point, then you're just going to build and build and build up. Again, these are common thyroid function shifts. These are not all of them, but this is a common one. Side note, like another compensation or another shift can be like when that isn't happening, when the body is not registering that the T3 isn't being used, and then T3 levels actually continue to climb and climb and climb. So again, there are lots of other ways that thyroid function can shift, but I'm just kind of talking about some common ones. The third common one that tends to happen is a lowered T4 level, a lower T4 level. This often happens with long-standing dysfunction somewhere in that metabolic window, somewhere in a chemical function going wrong. Something is so off in the body that the body does actually halt the T4 production in the thyroid because the thyroid and the body senses that that T4 is not even being used. So kind of like I was just mentioning for in another sense where it does not sense that something isn't being used or that it's not sensing that thyroid hormone is being used, so the thyroid levels build up, it can definitely sense that the thyroid hormone is not being used and halt thyroid production. So, key organs aside from the thyroid that are involved in monitoring thyroid function is the liver. After T4 is produced in the thyroid, it gets sent to the liver, and most of your T4 to T3 conversion does happen in the liver. It also happens in other areas such as like kidneys and stuff like that. But liver health and function is definitely going to be a key to thyroid hormone production and subsequent thyroid function. Optimal metabolism and performance of multiple functions is going to impact liver function, which is also going to impact thyroid function. So this is all where Food Clues comes in. So your Food Clues can help narrow down what issues might be the root of the problem that's throwing off the thyroid function very easily by just looking at the body's natural signals and signs. I'm going to give you some top examples of Food Clues connections between food avoidance patterns and thyroid function. Here's number 1. Avoidance of foods high in fat, healthy or unhealthy fats. So this can be anything from people who say like fried foods don't settle well with their stomach, people who have allergies or intolerances and avoid things like coconut, avocado, tree nuts, even peanut allergies would fall under this category. Avoidance of fatty foods could indicate difficulty breaking down fats into fatty acids. That process occurs in the liver. If the liver is not functioning optimally, we can also maybe detect if that T4 to T3 conversion is not happening. So the basis is signs that point to liver dysfunction could also be a heads up that thyroid function could be impacted as well, since conversion and production of thyroid hormone happens in the liver. Another liver sign, because again, so much conversion happens in the liver, another food-related liver sign that can give us a clue that liver function isn't optimized, so therefore thyroid function might not be optimized as well, or that might be the thing throwing off the check engine light, is the avoidance of cilantro. We talk about this, or you may have heard of this a lot in general. People either love or hate cilantro. You either love it to death or it's disgusting. Some people say it tastes like soap. Difficulty tolerating cilantro can point to issues with methylation in the liver. Methylation is a series of steps that uses hydrogen carbon compounds to execute tons of chemical reactions. So methylation helps with metabolism. The vast majority, I believe, of methylation happens in the liver. So again, a food that ties to liver function can give us a clue that liver function might be off. And since that's where a lot of thyroid issues or a lot of thyroid performance happens, that can be a connecting food to let us know or give us a reason of why thyroid function might be a little off. And then the third example might be avoidance of spicy or acidic foods. As the thyroid helps to control metabolism, it also helps to keep acid-base neutrality or acid-base balance in the body, especially by regular removal of waste acids through the liver. In short, the two processes that control acid use and elimination is making bile and managing how your body uses uric acid, which eventually becomes urine so that you pee it out. If there's an issue with acid levels getting too high due to poor acid management, likely because of something going on in the liver, the body might reject acidic foods coming in as a method to keep those acid levels under control. So again, the overarching take-home point can be that foods that indicate something going on in the liver can also indicate that the liver is not optimizing functionally, which could likely impact thyroid function and may be the reason that thyroid levels are starting to shift or be off. So there's lots of many more food clues connections. So this is just a glimpse into the power of applying food clues as a philosophy to uncover missing links between what might be driving thyroid function using those natural body signals, those natural body clues, those food clues. So I hope that was informational. I hope that you found this to be beneficial. Stay tuned for more Food Clues connections, and I'll be talking to you guys soon.